If we have gifts and we have strengths, how ridiculous is it that we would keep them to ourselves and never use them to go and serve other people? So one day I walked into my living room and my wife was sitting over in a chair and she was crying like hard. And of course, that as her husband, I'm freaked out. Hey, what happened? What's going on? And she looked at me, and her dad was on a missions trip as he led every single year, it seemed like for, I want to say over 20 years, to Jamaica. And one of the other counselors that were there with him, chaperones, had been hit by a tree that fell, and he was dead on sight. And so Mackenzie looks back at me and says, Lee is dead and dad is in the hospital and we don't know how bad he is. And so now all of a sudden we've got 2 out of 3 counselors, the chaperones are out of commission. There's one left with all these high school students. And as Paul's family, as my father-in-law's family, we're trying to say, how do we get to him? What do we do? What's the next step? Of the 20 plus years of them doing this, there was never like a big emergency like this. And even the school, to be honest, they weren't real sure what to do. Here, Lee Rickman had been, he was a teacher at the school and he was a staple of that community right there. He was someone I played soccer with back in the day. I mean, a lot of people knew this guy and he had a really good heart for missions and he's dead. Like it wasn't computing to anybody that was related or tied into this situation. Everyone was freaking out. And so we go over to my in-laws' house and it turns out that it was only me and my mother-in-law who had active passports. And we looked at each other and said, great, let's book some flights. Let's get down there. And so we find the next flight out and get down to Jamaica. We had to get to Paul. He was in the hospital. At that point, we knew he was alive. We didn't know if he was going in and out of consciousness because hospitals down there weren't exactly hospitals here in the United States. And we were trying to get information, but there just wasn't any more information aside from that Lee was dead. Now, I was freaking out. So before we left, I said, I was kind of calm and composed, but in that process, I was going, what in the world am I supposed to do? I don't have this crisis management mindset necessarily. I wasn't that old. I mean, I might have been 25 at the time or something. And I didn't have enough life experience to go down there to these 16 and 17-year-olds and get to them in order to get them back home. And I called one of my mentors. He was my soccer coach. And I said, and he knew Lee. He was very close to Lee. And I said, Coach, what in the world am I supposed to do? We're going down there. We're going to get the students back here to the States. What are we going to do? Well, what should I do? How do I handle this? And across the phone, and it's stuck with me ever since. And all he said in the most simplest way possible, but he said, Bryce, don't stop serving until you get back home. And I've carried that with me ever since because he said, it doesn't matter if someone needs a cup of water, go get it for them. All you have to do, don't think about what you need to say or what you need to go and hear or any of that. He said, just go down. And when you see an opportunity to serve somebody, do it. And man, that took all the pressure off of me. But I will say, when I got down there, it was a little bit of I say chaotic scene. All the students were in really great shape considering the situation. Back home, the community was just freaking out because, again, if my kid was down there on this, I don't know what I would have done. I would have been on a plane, honestly, to go get them. But no one really knew what the next steps were to go and do. And so when I got in there, I went into Lee's room. And of course, it was empty. Him and Paul were rooming together. Paul was still in the hospital. And his stuff had been packed up by the other chaperone. And I sat on one bed and I looked across the other bed at his packed bag. And I cried. And I was by myself and I thought about the memories I had with Lee. But man, this guy was meant to do all this great stuff. And he had a great heart for other people. And in that moment, all I could picture was giving this bag back to his mom and his family and how hard that would be. And all I thought in that moment, and this was my moment to really serve those family or those other students, I didn't want them to have to hand over the bag that should have been attached to Lee's back. And so I packed it all up, and of course, and I think we were there until the next day, and we got on a plane and got all the kids back. But when we got off of that terminal in Greensboro, North Carolina, those kids came off the plane, and they were all, I think they had their arms locked with each other in unison together. In Greensboro, you turn, and all of a sudden you can see up that terminal where all the families waiting. And at first, it was the most heartbreaking scene that I can't forget, because I'm standing behind them and actually snapped a picture for their sake. But all of a sudden, the parents started crying because they had been panicked for a couple of days about getting their kid back, and what the trauma that their kids have been through, and trauma that the community had been enduring. And as soon as I heard the parents start to break, those kids broke arms, and like it was my 6-year-old daughter running into my arms, they all went sprinting up that terminal, because all they wanted to do was be comforted by their parents after what they had just seen and witnessed, and watching one of their leaders get killed. And man, it was a moment I know that they won't ever forget. But for me, man, that opportunity to go into a moment of crisis and serve other people, I really believe it created this warrior mindset in me to find those opportunities, whether it's in crisis mode or every single day. And so I believe warriors are built for other people. And so to me, there's 3 ways that we can do it. Number 1, look for ways to lighten the loads of others. And just like wanting to grab that backpack and get it back to his family, because in that moment, that's when I broke down. I broke down when I handed that bag back to his brother. And his brother's in shock, and I'm crying my eyes out. And Matt's like, man, he should have been here with you guys. He should have been walking up that terminal right now. And we underestimate as society just how heavy of burdens that we're all carrying. And that person that's walking next to us in that airport, or at our jobs or in our school, like, they're carrying a lot of weight. And none of us know the trauma that everyone's been through. So look for ways to lighten the loads of others. Number 2, leave things better than you found them. So if it's a project you're on, or if it's a job that we have, or if it's a hotel room, right? When I was growing up, I had no respect for how I left a hotel room. It was always trashed. Now today, I believe that as I've tried to develop more of that warrior mindset, I care. Is the trash everywhere? No, it's piled up nicely right there in the trash can. Even if it's overflowing, it's going to be easy. The towels are all put together in the right place. Yeah, that person gets paid to clean that hotel room, but I get paid in my life to go and affect other people's lives. And so I want to make sure maybe that they have an easy clean in my hotel room, right? But whatever it is, if it's a job, or how are you leaving your class? If you're going to graduate this year, how are you leaving your senior class? Are you going to be known as a taker or a giver? Number 3, believe that other people are worth serving. The darkest part of my life, and when I struggled probably the most mentally, career-wise, job-wise, all of that, it's when I started to question whether the people around me were worth serving, whether I believed in them enough that they could actually go and accomplish what they were wanting to do. And it sent me into a dark place. It wasn't even that I believed in myself, or did or didn't believe in myself and what I was wanting to do. It was all of a sudden I was going, oh my gosh, like, can anyone go and accomplish that? And then I started to second guess my serving them. And that was the most unhealthy place I've ever been. Because our pursuit of comfort, our pursuit of kind of that safety, that safe life, I believe that is what's keeping us from doing more for other people. It's severely limiting the impact that we're making on this world. When we take more risks, we seem to recognize for some reason the needs of other people more often. When we live on the edge, I think our view then begins to get so much bigger than if we were just staring at our own path and at our own feet right in front of us. Because we have gifts, and if we have gifts and we have strengths, how ridiculous is it that we would keep them to ourselves and never use them to go and serve other people? No. Let's become built for others, and let's go watch how far those ripple effects will go.